Good afternoon, friends. You're on Snail TV. Today's video is about the 2018 American thriller Elizabeth Harvest. Let's begin to listen amazing recap from my dear friend.
Elizabeth wakes up in her spouse's car, rushing down a mountain serpentine. Henry, the man of her dreams, carries her sleepy wife in his arms to the posh mansion that will become their cozy family nest from now on. The dwelling is in a beautiful location, practically on top of a hill, away from the city. Immediately upon her arrival, Henry introduces the heroine to the servants, Claire and Oliver, who to the girl's surprise is blind. After a fancy dinner, the newlyweds spend their first wedding night full of love and passion. Elizabeth wakes up in the early morning. Then Henry gives his wife a tour of her new home, with superb chambers, a greenhouse, a pool and a wine cellar with a collection of exquisite drinks from years of age. The heroine notices that her husband has not shown her one of the rooms with a blue frosted glass door. Henry responds, saying that she has every right to be in all the apartments of the huge house, except for this place. In the evening, after enjoying each other by candlelight, her husband announces that he will leave tomorrow for business, and Elizabeth can spend her free time getting comfortable in her new home. The young girl begins the next day with a swim in the pool, and then follows her husband's advice. Tries on fancy outfits, expensive jewelry, and naturally sexy nightwear. At night, the heroine doesn't sleep alone. She walks around the empty house, then makes a spontaneous decision to find out what is in the mysterious room. Elizabeth unlocks the biometric lock and finds herself in a laboratory with 6 strange-looking cabinets. The doors have rectangular windows and LCD panels that display someone's vital signs. The heroine randomly presses a button, and out of the niche emerges a cryocapsule with the naked body of a clone, an exact copy of herself. A frightened and simultaneously shocked Elizabeth hastily escapes from the scary room. The next day, Henry, as if nothing had happened, compliments his wife, asks her about the day before offering to send the servants away and spend her free time in bed. Though fear and mistrust have settled in Elizabeth's soul, she is forced to submit to her husband's will. At night, Henry goes down to the laboratory, finds the heroine following him, then says, "She should have broken the band for nothing." Holding a huge machete knife, the husband begins to pursue the girl, who is hysterical, rushing around the house to no avail, as all exits are blocked. The heroine makes her way to the fireplace, arms herself with a cast-iron poker, and climbs the stairs. Suddenly, her husband's hand appears between the steps, then yanks Elizabeth's leg. The girl falls, and then the furious maniac kills his victim with a huge cane-cutting knife, and the innocent's blood sprays everything around her, the bookshelves, the walls, and a bouquet of delicate white orchids. Claire, Henry and Oliver dig a grave for the poor girl, drop the bloody body at the bottom, then quietly go to lunch. Allegedly, the maid sits at the head of the table for some reason and insists that, pardon the sarcasm, the inconsolable widower stopped the killing. Elizabeth, or rather her next clone, opens her eyes in her husband's car on her way to a cozy country cottage. Everything happens according to a tried and true scenario: a ceremonial introduction to the house, an introduction to the fake servants, a tour of the love nest, a question about what's behind the glass frosted door, and the reciprocal ban from that room. At night, the newlywed, in quotes Henry, repeats the scenario of the first, also in quotes martial sex, with stocking cutting with Elizabeth's clone. By the way, it's actually the first time for the heroine. She doesn't know what she's just a perfect copy of some girl. Later, Henry informs his wife that will be out all day tomorrow due to business in town. The heroine wakes up, wanders around the house alone, tries on expensive clothes and shoes, applies makeup, even kisses her, by the way, really beautiful reflection. Curiosity eventually takes hold of this Elizabeth clone as well. She finds capsules with her growing copies in anabiosis, then escapes from the lab in terror. This time, however, a new variable intervenes in the future murder scenario. Another copy of the girl wakes up. Completely naked, Elizabeth number 10 explores the house and finds a place to hide. Henry wakes up the heroine, whereupon she goes to the bathroom, supposedly to wash her face. The maniac breaks it on her, and with the words "You disobeyed me," tries to strangle the girl with a towel. Elizabeth vigorously resists Henry's attempts to take her life, breaks free, then tries unsuccessfully to get out of the blocked house. While mad scientist Henry douses a towel with chloroform with cold confidence, the young victim arms herself with a kitchen knife. The maniac sneaks up behind her, presses a rack of sleeping pills to her face, whereupon the girl loses consciousness. The assassin releases the flaccid body, forgetting that the clever woman is a treacherous opponent. Elizabeth only pretends to pass out. As soon as Henry loosens his grip, she plunges a sharp knife into the back of his head. The madman, drenched in his own blood, falls to the floor next to the exhausted heroine, then goes to hell to finally answer for all his sins. Elizabeth drags her husband's corpse to the front door, but it won't even open with his fingerprint. She needs the code. The girl washes the floor and the knife of blood, takes Henry's corpse up to the bedroom in an elevator, washes herself, throwing away the hated ring, then burns the body clothes. The supposed servants, Claire and Oliver, return to the house. The heroine pretends to read and tells the dumbfounded enablers of the maniac that Henry isn't feeling well, so he's resting upstairs. Claire takes off her coat, then suddenly falls to the floor because she has a heart condition. Out of her last strength, she dials 911 and asks for help. Elizabeth wants to run away with the medics, but the blind Oliver tells her that in this case, he can't protect her from the police investigation because he knew right away that Henry is dead. Oliver helps the heroine destroy the corpse, after which he tells the girl the truth, that she is a product of biogenesis, a masterpiece creation of Henry's genius. Elizabeth, number 5. Oliver himself is not a servant, but the son of a late scientist. The car of Detective Logan, the only friend of the heroine's hobby, pulls up to the mansion. Elizabeth tells him that her husband is too damn tired to sleep upstairs. The policeman begins to suspect that the case is not clean, whereupon a blind Oliver, guided by his voice, kills the weasel Logan with the shotgun. The guy explains to Elizabeth there is no need to feel sorry for Henry's friend, because he personally found and returned the escaped copy number 3 to the maniac's house. The accomplices dispose of the detective's body following the scientist, after which Oliver suggests that the heroine escaped by taking money from the safe. While Elizabeth is packing, the guy locks her in the dressing room. We all know that like father, like son, the son inherited his dead father's manic genes. The trapped heroine reads Claire's diary. She tells the story of her encounter with the brilliant scientist, Henry, who won the Nobel Prize for his discoveries in cell programming. 5 years ago, he took in Dr. Claire, rejected by a scientific community, to work together on his project. His goal is to recreate an exact clone of his young wife, who died years ago, and in the number of 6 at once. The first pair of Elizabeth copies died of complications and mutations. The other 4 were growing in anabiosis. After 2 years of hard work, Claire helped the scientist correct some gene errors, but the third Elizabeth suffered a short-term memory disorder. Claire found a saddened Henry with a dead clone in his arms. They continued to work on improving the genome of the new copies. Eventually, working together expectedly led the pair to experiment not only in the lab, but also in bed. The clever woman guessed. The distraught scientist killed the third clone and took sadistic pleasure in doing so, and he intends to continue. Even after that, however, she didn't leave because she fell in love with Henry. Claire couldn't find the pregnancy records for the real Elizabeth in her medical history, and then she realized that Oliver isn't her son, but a clone of the mad professor. But of course he doesn't know anything. Oliver brings the prisoner dinner. As soon as he unlocks the closet door, the heroine knocks him down and digs out the exit code. The blind guy claims he just wants to talk, but the girl doesn't believe the maniacal clone, so she ties Oliver up with his own trouser belt. The code to the door is expectedly wrong, plus the guy manages to free himself in the meantime. Armed with the kitchen axe, Elizabeth finds it in the lab at clone number 6. The guy asks for help turning the body of the last copy, at which point stick a tranquilizer syringe into the heroine's neck. The girl wakes up in her bedroom with a huge chain on her leg attached to a metal rack. So several days go by. One day, Elizabeth wakes up to the touch of sharp scissors on her neck. Oliver pokes out the truth about himself that lurks in Claire's diaries, for he's blind and can't read himself. The heroine reveals the secret. He is not his son, but a young copy of Henry. The boy responds by confessing that he has loved Elizabeth since childhood, for they grew up together until the age of 8. Only then, the scientist immersed her in cryosleep. The girl pretends that she too has had a crush on Oliver for a long time, takes off her skirt, then asks him to come closer, slit her panties, and indulge in sinful pleasure. The young dear, sorry, naive guy, falls for the seduction, whereupon Elizabeth disarms him, digs out the real door cord, frees herself from the chain, and starts beating Oliver. Suddenly, Elizabeth number 6 appears in the room, armed with a shotgun, and forces her previous version to stop beating Henry. The heroine, who realizes that the guy has to put it mildly, misled the last clone, pretends to comply, discreetly picks up the scissors, and then wants Oliver in the leg. Then, putting the cutting tool to his throat, asks him to let her go. Elizabeth number 6, tried of holding the heavy gun, accidentally pulls the trigger and kills Oliver Henry. Meanwhile, the bloodied heroine, wounded by the same bullet, goes to the door with her last strength, dials the correct code, and then goes outside. She takes literally 2 sips of freedom and dies, killed by the second shot of the 6th clone. The last thing the heroine sees in her life are beautiful emerald green eyes, a perfect replica of her own. The only survivor also learns the truth about herself from Henry's assistant's notes. In the morning, Claire is discharged from the hospital and runs into Elizabeth number 6, who returns her diary and finally rushes free herself away from the artificial dreams and memories instilled in her by the mad scientist.
That's all for today. If you enjoyed the content and want more quality retellings, like, subscribe, write a comment, and don't forget to share with your friends. This is Snail TV. See you soon!